Slavery has a very long history, and although we like to think that it has completely disappeared, it is still happening in our world today. To be a slave is to be owned by another person. A slave is a human being classed as property who is forced to work for nothing. When most people think of slavery, they think of traditional slavery, the kind of slavery that happened in the 1900s, where slaves were actual property who could be bought, sold, traded, or inherited. They might be abused, branded, bred, exploited, or killed. The modern-day slavery is known as human trafficking. There are many different aspects of human trafficking, but we want to focus on sex trafficking specifically. Sex trafficking is defined as the illegal business of recruiting, harboring, transporting, obtaining, or providing a person, and especially a minor, for the purpose of sex.
There were approximately 12.5 million enslaved Africans that were shipped to the Americas between 1500 and 1866. And today, there are about 20 to 30 million humans being trafficked today. Some experts estimate that sex trafficking accounts to 80% of that trafficking.
98% of people that are trafficked are women and girls. Also, a lot of these people are coming from the global south. If you don't know what that is, that would be the countries that were once called third world or developing countries, such as Latin America, Asia, and Africa.
A lot of these women are trafficked from the global south because they are the most vulnerable due to multiple reasons, one of them being poverty. They are more susceptible to kindness, people offering to help them and take them places for like Medicare and things like that, and they're just more susceptible to kindness.
Another reason would be that the government has basically no regulation. A lot of the governments over there aren't really enforcing the laws that are already put into place, and a lot of the time law enforcement are actually interacting in this industry basically because they're going into the brothels and they're being paid to keep quiet, and a lot of the time they actually go in and participate in having sex with these women and girls that are in the brothels.
Actually, in one of our videos, they talked about how policemen will come in there one day and try and bust the brothel and try and take money from the brothel owner and the people who are and the women who are working there, and then the next day they'll come in without a uniform on and just pay them to have sex with them and just do the same thing that everybody else is. So this is a problem because women are being turned into a commodity. Their bodies are being sold. The definition of slavery is ownership over a human being, and that's basically what it is. Human trafficking profits are estimated $32 billion a year, and it is an industry at this point. It's a $32 billion industry, and $10 billion of that is derived just from the purchase of that woman's body, not even like giving them money for the sex or anything like that, or videos or whatever else they want to do. That is $10 million just from the purchase of the body.
Also, human trafficking is a shocking example of just how globalization can facilitate and help grow crime rings basically just for economic gain. And globalization is a core thing when talking about sex trafficking because it is what has helped to make things such as sex tourism, and that's literally where men go and travel around the world just to have sex with women, and it's pretty disgusting and pretty messed up.
So another reason this is a huge issue is because of health. Lots of these women are being forced to have unprotected sex. They're being forced to have drugs by the brothels because that's what their johns are doing, so they're just going to participate in drugs as well. They're just being forced to do it. And unsanitary abortions, tons of other things, and a huge problem is the fact that these men are having unprotected sex with these women in the brothels, and so these women in brothels are a huge cause to the spread of HIV/AIDS, which is a huge issue in the global south, and they can't get help for this because they have no health care. That's not a thing that you get working in a brothel or working as a sex trafficker. You don't get to go to the doctor and be like, hey, I have an issue. You just have to deal with it.
Another problem with sex trafficking is the personal impact and the toll that it takes on the woman. Not only are they being physically and emotionally abused while they're in the brothels, but once they get out of them, once they are rescued or freed, the people in their communities are constantly ostracizing them and putting them as outcasts because of the things that they have been through, and they're disrespected, and they're seen as impure basically, even though they have no control over what happens. A lot of these women and girls are also criminalized for the things that they've done in the brothels, or just the fact that they were doing sex work at all. They are taken to jail and charged a lot of the times for prostitution and drug use, which they are forced to do when they're in these brothels.
Oh, and I think I read something one time that a woman was charged to put to death because she was charged as cheating on her husband, even though she was just kidnapped and sex trafficked, and she had a husband already. So that is just one good example of why this whole thing is messed up. And also just think about, like, what if it was your little sister? What if it was your cousin? What if it was your mom? What if it was your friend?
Yeah. What if it was any of you out there? Would you want people looking at you in a bad way because of something that you can't even control?
Mm-hmm. What if you were sitting in a brothel being abused because you didn't want to touch somebody that you didn't want to touch? They're being forced to do all these things. They're being forced to have sex. They're being forced to do drugs. They're being forced to have unsanitary abortions. They're being forced to do all of these things that nobody in their right mind would ever want to do. These are victims, and they are not somebody who is going to work every day. They are stuck there. They're prisoners. They're slaves. That's what it is.
So if you're wondering what can you do to help these victims and help this horrible thing end, the first thing that you can do is educate yourself, which hopefully we've educated you at least a little bit if you didn't know anything about it, and also educating others and giving your time, effort, and money into helping these women that are going through this.
Mm-hmm. One of those organizations is the Polaris Project. It takes a comprehensive approach to ending modern-day slavery and pushes for stronger federal laws and things like that. And then there is the National Human Trafficking Resource Center hotline. What is that too?
It helps survivors to be able to develop lives basically after they have gone through this horrible event.
Mm-hmm. And it is truly a horrible event. It is something that needs to end, and it is really not okay. It is just like literally objectifying us as something to be purchased, and it is not right. It's not okay, and it definitely should not be a $32 billion industry. Thank you for listening. My name's Katrina.
I'm Lauren.
And I guess you'll see our classmates in the next video. Thank you.